For centuries, the Roman Empire was the world's only superpower, a civilization written in stone, marble, and impossible ambition. To walk through Rome at its height was to stand amidst the giants of history, the soaring arches of the Colosseum, the vast, sun-drenched domes of the Pantheon, and the sprawling forums that governed 3 continents. It was a world of eternal monuments that seemed destined to defy time itself. But by the 6th century, that world was a graveyard. The marble was stained, the arches were crumbling, and the heart of the West had stopped beating. Most accepted that the glory of the Caesars was a memory. Restoring it would require wealth the empire no longer had, wars it could barely afford, and risks no Roman had dared to take in generations. But one man was haunted by it. He didn't just want to remember Rome, he wanted to rebuild it. And in doing so, he would gamble the fate of the empire itself. Justinian was willing to risk the Eastern Roman Empire to reclaim the lost West. But would it pay off? Yet, the path to this imperial rebirth didn't begin with an emperor's decree. It began with the rhythmic thud of peasant sandals on a dirt road. Justin didn't arrive in Constantinople with a crown. He arrived with blisters, a 20-year-old peasant walking 400 miles from the Thracian wilderness to the Golden City. For 30 years, he traded his sweat for rank, rising from a simple palace guard to the commander of the excubators, and finally, a seat in the Senate. But Justin was a man without an heir to his rising fortune. He reached back to his roots, sending for his nephew, a young boy named Petrus. Justin may have been uneducated, but he was smart enough to know that a new Rome required a new mind. He bought Petrus the finest education in the world, shaping the temperament of the boy who would legally become his son. Following Roman custom, Petrus took a new name, Justinian. In 498, the death of Emperor Anastasius left a power vacuum. Justin was the only man in the city holding the keys to the military. Through a series of ruthless, behind-the-scenes maneuvers, likely orchestrated by the young, sharp-minded Justinian, the old soldier was acclaimed emperor. Justinian had been raised in the halls of power. Now, he was its architect. But the woman who would complete him started even lower than a peasant. Theodora was the daughter of a bear keeper at the Hippodrome. She was a child of the theater, a world of spectacle and scandal that the Roman elite despised. Yet, this world gave her something no classroom could: a lethal intelligence and a charisma that could captivate a city. After a failed expedition with a governor left her stranded in Alexandria, she clawed her way back to the capital. By the time she arrived, she wasn't just a survivor. She was a woman of independent means and iron will. Constantinople lived and died by the Hippodrome. The city was split between 2 fanatical sports factions, the Blues and the Greens. More than just fans, they were street-level power brokers. Justinian, breaking centuries of imperial neutrality, threw his weight behind the Blues. It was through this network of street politics that he met Theodora. Despite a 20-year age gap and a social divide that seemed impossible to bridge, Justinian was head over heels instantly. By 527, the old soldier Justin was fading. On April 4th, at the Senate's request, the imperial diadem was placed on Justinian's head. When Justin finally succumbed to an old war wound months later, the peasant's nephew stood alone as the master of the Roman world. Justinian and Theodora were the power couple of the 6th century, vibrant, young, and dangerously ambitious. Justinian's dream was absolute: one god in heaven and one empire on earth. To him, the barbarian kingdoms in the West weren't just neighbors. They were squatters on Roman land. The empire had to be made whole, no matter the cost. To build a new world, Justinian needed a new kind of ruthlessness. He found it in John the Cappadocian, a tax administrator who turned the imperial treasury into a weapon. John didn't just collect taxes, he hunted them. Using a network of spies and the brutal application of torture, he squeezed the aristocracy until they bled gold. This wasn't just greed, it was the fuel for an architectural explosion unlike anything the world had seen since the days of Trajan. Within just the first 2 years of his reign, Constantinople became a massive construction site. Justinian launched a building program of divine proportions, commissioning 8 massive churches to transform the city into the undisputed center of the Christian world. He poured fortunes into the skyline, obsessed with the idea that the physical grandeur of the capital must reflect the eternal power of the God who chose him to rule. But Justinian knew that a lasting empire needed more than stone. It needed an unbreakable skeleton of order. The current Roman legal code was a chaotic, 1,000-year-old wreckage of contradictory decrees and forgotten precedents. He tasked the jurist Tribonian with a task most thought impossible: distilling this mountain of mess into a single, unified legal system. In just 14 months of tireless labor, the Corpus Juris Civilis was born. It was a masterpiece of logic and clarity, a legal backbone so resilient that it remains the foundation of Western law to this day. Justinian's shadow now stretched far beyond the walls of his capital. While he rebuilt the law at home, his eyes were fixed on the fractured pieces of the Old West. He became a master of geopolitical manipulation, waiting for the precise moment to strike at the barbarian kingdoms. In North Africa, the Vandal kingdom, once the terror of the Mediterranean, was rotting from within. Their leadership was fractured by religious infighting and a weak king, making their fertile lands and strategic ports a prime target for a Roman return. To the north, the Ostrogothic kingdom in Italy was stumbling into a succession crisis following the death of Theodoric the Great. Rome itself, the ultimate prize, lay under Goth control, but for the first time in a century, the gates seemed ready to yield. Justinian even reached as far as the burning sands of the Red Sea. By backing Christian allies in Ethiopia to intervene against a Jewish ruler in Yemen, he wasn't just protecting the faithful, he was seizing control of the vital spice and silk routes that bypassed his Persian rivals. The pieces were now set on a global chessboard. The dream of a restored Rome was no longer a distant vision of grandeur. It was an impending, bloody reality. But before Justinian could launch his legions toward the lost provinces of the West, a shadow fell over his eastern frontier. The Sassanid Persian Empire, Rome's ancient and most formidable rival, was watching. Their new king, Khosrau I, was a ruler every bit as ambitious and brilliant as Justinian himself. The stage was set for a clash of titans. To reclaim the past, Justinian would first have to survive a war for the future, a brutal struggle against the King of Kings that would push the empire to its absolute breaking point. The dream of a restored Rome was about to face its first and perhaps deadliest trial.